There comes a time in one's life when we need to ask the hard questions. How do you want to lead the remainder of your life? Do you want to leave it with suffering? Or would you rather live it with comfort, dignity, and compassion? This week on Profiles, we get to know Dr. Mae Corvera, who passionately champions palliative and hospice care. Even before she became a full-fledged doctor, Mae knew she had a calling for palliative and hospice care.
I came in as a first-year resident, but as early as that, you would see already patients being referred to us as family medicine. And we're told that these patients have been in the hospital too long, they take up a bed, and they need to be sent home because there's really nothing that can be done in the critical care unit anymore. So we're referred to for home care.
After years in the field of family medicine, in 2013, she put up the Ruth Foundation for Palliative and Hospice Care to fill the gaps she had experienced firsthand in caring for the sick and dying.
I saw that there's still so much that can still be done. It's just that not within the hospital. I saw that this needs to be brought really to the larger community. I saw the gap between those who can afford home care and those who cannot. And I said we need to start something to help.
The Ruth Foundation's mission is to make life better for those facing advanced illness and age through a holistic and collaborative approach, easing that transition from curative care to palliative, comforting care. It's named after her mother-in-law, Ruth Corvera, a community social worker who inspired her and had gone through the same care before her death.
She inspired us because she was also one who set up her own NGO. She was really, her whole life was actually dedicated to community, and she's our model, and that's how it began.
In just 5 years, the Ruth Foundation has touched the lives of more than 5,000 patients across 18 different municipalities. They've cared for patients from as briefly as 10 hours to as long as almost 3 years, varying in age and illness. What Mae feels is the team's greatest achievement, though, is successfully spreading the word on palliative and hospice care.
Not many people are really familiar with what exactly that is and what exactly palliative and hospice care is.
Their general understanding is really, it's associated with death. For those who have heard it, it's usually end-of-life care only. That's what strikes them first. Oh, we're not ready for that. Or,
you don't want to talk about it.
Let's not talk about that yet. They don't know that it really involves holistic care, and the highlight should be really quality of life, not quality even of death. The goal is really to transform suffering by means of preventing it, anticipating physical symptoms or pain that may lead to suffering, and even the psychosocial aspect of suffering is anticipated. There have been studies that show that it actually lessens the burden of cost, because especially if you're referred early, the goals of care are well defined, and futile care is lessened, and the family works alongside the physician to care for this patient.
Mae can't stress enough how crucial palliative care is to public health care. Nearly 5 million senior citizens need to be cared for in the Philippines. 2/3 of Filipino children with cancer are diagnosed at advanced stages, and their survival rate is less than 20%. Throughout the country, only 2 hospitals have a hospice ward, and no more than 50 non-government organizations are providing palliative and hospice care. The Philippines is listed as one of the worst places in the world to die due to a lack of palliative care professionals, public services, and government support. And ultimately, 100% of the population is going to need compassionate bedside care when they reach the end of life. This is the driving force behind Mae's passionate lobby for palliative care to be included in the country's Universal Health Bill. Mae is absolutely thrilled about the Senate's recent approval of the bill last October 10, 2018. But before this becomes law, a bicameral session is needed to reconcile the different provisions of the Senate and House of Representatives versions.
At least palliative care has its foot in the door, so to say. If it's approved, I believe all government hospitals at least would have to set up a service. But that's just the start of the work. We have to empower people to provide the service.
In the meantime, the Ruth Foundation is doing its best to bridge the gaps. Their home visits, called Care Encounters, send out holistic teams to bring palliative care to the doorsteps of those who need it most.
Residency training She was my senior and then eventually became my chief resident. Some of the most valuable lessons I learned from Dr. Mae is use your talents. Go beyond yourself, your practice, your family, and serve other people. She's a great inspiration for everyone. Yung foresight niya, yung insight niya into saan pupunta yung foundation. Mas lumawak yung services, yung provision ng services to really indigent people. The focus is really for those who are suffering. Yun ang pinaka-importante.
Maybe people think there's no more hope, so it's just all about the patient, but it's actually, as you said, holistic, also thinking about the family.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what it means for the caregiver or a palliative doctor?
When you're alone, it's very difficult. As I started, I thought I could, just go out there and do it myself. But then I realized you can't. It really needs a interdisciplinary team. You have to really sit at least not less than 30 minutes with the patient and the family to assure them that you're there for the long run. And they can call on you, and you have to establish that connection. We have to be a team to care for them.
Yeah, that's why the community is so important.
Yeah.
No?
Yes, and that's another part of our advocacy, Mitch. We need to start having these conversations. It's really a community approach. Because some of the referrals come because they don't know what to do and they want to just be able to talk about what to do.
Community empowerment is another thrust of the foundation. Through a comprehensive education program, the Ruth Foundation is able to empower everyone in the community to do their part in caring for neighbors living with chronic illnesses.
We have modules for volunteers or the lay, and then we have modules for professionals, so nurses and caregivers, and then for physicians. So we are hoping to continue spreading the word about our programs.
Ultimately, Mae hopes that no one has to die alone and in pain, that everyone will be surrounded by a compassionate community of care. To get a clearer picture of Mae's advocacy, I tagged along on her care encounters.
I used to do this before, fresh out of training. We are already called by patients to do house calls, so I didn't really settle in a clinic practice even at the start. I tried, but then it's not my thing to sit in a clinic, and my love for home care was, was really there.
The first patient?
Yes, Crystal, 13-year-old girl with cerebral palsy presentation. So they've been taking care of her through regular visits with physical therapy. And there are times she had a wound, they would take care of that. Then, of course, support for the family, the mom is the primary caregiver. Kamusta si Crystal? Okay naman siya. Nakatulog pa.
Hindi ano siya minsan.
Ay, Crystal, itong bubo niya, ma'am, bumalik ba?
Kasi tinulong ni tatay. Kasi nung chinek ni Nurse Jella, meron daw nandito ng clamp. Kailangan lang daw itatap. Yun, lumabas.
Alright.
Para daw.
So, hindi naman siya nilalagnat ulit or ano?
Crystal was diagnosed with a rare and degenerative neurological disorder called Rett syndrome. It affects the way her brain develops, causing her to lose control of her eye and body movements and speech. It occurs almost exclusively in girls.
Okay, good. Hilig ka ba sa music? Ha? Anong favorite music ni Crystal? Anong favorite song? May favorite song ba?
OPM yan.
OPM?
Mae has a warm and calming bedside manner. Although most of her patients are advanced in age, she pays close attention to her child patients, most of whom are in the advanced stages of cancer.
May mga bata din na dumadalang.
Opo, kaya sa labas, pag nakikita siya. Kailangan mo po siya dyan lahat sa labas.
Kasi importante, at least tuloy pa yung sa mga ibang bata.
Seeing Crystal bedridden must be painful for her mother, and this is exactly why palliative care needs to be holistic. Mae is not just looking out for the therapeutic needs of the sick, but the mental and emotional welfare of their families.
In our care encounters with the foundation, it's really a team. The nurse actually goes there first to the patient to establish the first connection. And our team is also composed of a counselor. We also have physical therapists, even massage therapists. This is Nurse Jelay,
Hello po.
our full-time nurse who does home visits, and then Miss Lita, who is our massage therapist, and she helps a lot with our patients with functional, disabilities.
So now you have your stroke patient.
Mr. Narlito, 58-year-old stroke patient, basically stable. Then we're able to help by providing, a humble fund for his maintenance for the seizures. He's more comfortable now.
Norlito was found on the floor of his home in Laguna and suffered episodes of seizures after 2 months. Today, he spends most of his days in bed, cared for by his wife.
Mami, eto, lubid lang. Lubid.
Ayun.
Tapos yung kapirasong hose, hawakan niya. So, tatayo siya dahil doon. Ang tawag po doon, pulley, improvise. Ayun, para makabuelo siya. Yun po ginagawa siya. Kaya malala.
Talagang yung marinig mo yung lakas na hinuhugot niya. Yung galing mo yun, sir. The encounter also involves talking about advanced directives, which is in case of a critical event in the home, what is the decision of this patient? How would they like to be cared for? Do they want to be rushed to the emergency room? Do they want to be given life support, or do they not? Would they rather be cared for at home? Who can we call?
The empathy of Mae's team for their patients and their families is palpable. Norlito's wife was even treated to a much-needed back rub.
And even the family might be relieved with a short back shoulder.
Nice. Wow.
So we take care of the family as well, because we see, as a physician, you see that the problem is not just, the burden is not just on the patient. It's really the family also.
Right.
So when we sit down with these families, now you're giving them hope. They feel that they're at the end of the line, just go home, just wait it.
Yeah.
But then I think that's what gives most of us specialists that drive to really be there for them, because it's really giving them hope that they can still be cared for. We've seen it in many patients that this hope can actually prolong their time, because the body reacts to that positivity that, I'm comfortable, and the immune system kicks in, and they survive sometimes even longer than we expect.
Of course, we know it's harder for the families because we're the ones being left behind. What exactly is the support that you give them?
It's really the decision making that's difficult, because those decisions are not meant to be made alone, because it's usually the uncertainty that's really stressing them out.
Exactly.
And we have to sit down with them and give them what's certain and what can be done.
Mae was just the support Marge needed during her most uncertain time, faced with the prospect of losing her mother to colon cancer.
My mother was insistent. She wanted to go home. She didn't want to see any more doctors. She didn't want hospitals. Dr. Mae helped me tremendously. She helped me understand that what was important was not what I wanted. It was what my mother wanted and needed. But it was very, very hard to accept my mother's wishes. But I realized this is what I had to do. So I said to Dr. Mae, yes, I'll bring her home, but I can't do it alone.
What are the things that you may have had to unlearn or maybe just pick up along the way?
Actually, what's funny is, we learn the basics again about being a compassionate healer, how to be a good listener, and how to just be able to assess your patient by listening first. And so that's what we've had to relearn, and to come to terms with our own mortality. That's the first thing I teach, actually. Whoever is interested to learn, they have to come to terms first with their own mortality, and the fear of that has to be managed first. Because you can't enter a room when you're afraid yourself.
By mid-afternoon, we were on our way to our third care encounter. Despite her smile, I could sense that the day was taking its toll on Mae.
Our next patient is more complicated, because this is a case of a 44-year-old female. She has breast cancer, possible bone spread. So she's been on pain medications, morphine, 60 milligrams every day, and another one for what we call nerve pain, because she's already had a fracture, which we feel is connected to her cancer.
Hello po. Kasama ko si Dr. Mae.
Hi. Hello. Hello po.
Annalisa's stage 4 breast cancer is advancing so quickly, I could hardly recognize her in her pictures. At this stage, her family's sole focus is to alleviate any pain and discomfort.
Ngayon po, habang nag-uusap tayo, anong naramdaman mo? Gaano ka, halimbawa, ito yung isang area ng pain.
Apo.
Saan pa ba yung kumikirot? Dito?
Ito lang naman po siya. Yung itong brasong to ang masakit.
Ang pinakamasakit.
Okay.
Mae has a natural, nurturing warmth about her and a calmness that surely comforts her patients. It may have been a trait she inherited from her father, a pastor, and her mother, who was a nurse.
They showed me an example of being servants to the community. There's a really importance of having purpose, purpose beyond yourself. If you're, you're living out your assigned life purpose, things will just fall into place. Sa check ko lang ha, yung mouth niyo. Okay, good. Galing. At least walang mga, kasi alam mo naman pag
Wala po.
Tingnan ko rin yung ano niya ha, yung mata. Anong favorite ice cream mo? Flavor?
Chocolate.
Chocolate. Okay. Tandaan natin yan.
Where do you draw your strength from? Because, it's very difficult, again, hard emotionally, physically.
Yeah. Actually, the strength is knowing that this is, your assignment. It's really your purpose. And faith, of course, is the core. And then, of course, family is really mean. I couldn't have done this without, of course, my husband and my kids who understand why on my phone there are these pictures of whatnot.
They may come home very,
Yeah, but they understand, and I'm blessed that they understand what I do.
It really takes a special kind of person, a special kind of doctor to really go into this field. Kasi you absorb the misery, and it's not only the patient, the family, the dynamics dun sa the death process and the dying. Believe din ako dun sa asawa ko kasi if it were me, hindi ko kaya.
When you dedicate your life to the pursuit of bringing solace to the sick and dying, you're inevitably surrounded by their sadness and grief. I imagine it can be overwhelming, even to someone like Mae.
Yeah, so it's so emotional. It's so hard, Karen, being so strong for everyone. It's hard to
Imagine them if they're exposed. The nurses. Okay.
As I try to comfort her, I'm in awe of how much wisdom and will it takes to keep on going.
Of course, there's always the bad side of things, but don't let it ruin your day. Look what you can do and look at what you can do. And what you can't do, you have to just trust that it'll be taken care of. That's how we approach our patients as well.
What greatest lesson do you think you've learned in terms of preparing for your own death or the death of a loved one?
It's not going to be easy, no matter how well prepared. Before, I wanted to be in the house, in the home, in the comfort of my own bedroom. I might even change that because I saw that there's a need for the family to be supported by professionals. The hospital can still be a place of comfort if the room is set up in a way that there is still peace and the plan is clear, that you're there for comfort measures, and family can come in and say their goodbyes. What's important to me is the family supported, because we want to prevent the stress and the trauma that they may carry on even after I'm no longer with them.
Blessed na blessed po kami sa Ruth Foundation kasi po hindi lang po yung medication na bibigay sa amin, spiritual, nurse, doktor, pati po gamot na binibigyan po kami ng...
Life is beautiful and must be treasured. But Mae's work shows us that there's also beauty even in the end stages of life, as she brings hope and dignity to those nearing death. Seeing Mae's gentle, loving touch with patients, I'm overcome with emotion recalling the times I encountered death in my family and imagine the heartbreak her patients and their families are going through. By spreading the word on palliative and hospice care, Mae and the Ruth Foundation have sparked a revolution of love, calling everyone to take part in efforts to provide emotional, cultural, and spiritual support and stand up for a basic human right.